Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to Your Overseas Home and this afternoon's webinar for Spanish property buyers and movers, the legal essentials of purchasing and visas and residency in Spain. And I'm thrilled to be joined by Emma Belgum from JLCA and Associates Lawyers, who we've heard from many times, and we know they are real experts in the field of both buying and also visas and residency and all that stuff. We've got a 30-minute webinar. We're going to have a presentation from Emma, but what we really want to hear is from you. So do please put your questions into the question chat, which you should find on the right, I think, of your screen. And it would be good just to get you clicking, get some interaction going. If you could tell us where in Spain you're thinking of buying. JLCA cover the whole of Spain, so we don't worry about where you're buying. Just be interested to find out where. Let's just before the presentation, just say have a quick hello from Emma, and just to tell us a bit about you and about JLCA.
Thanks very much, Chris. Well, just to start off with, JLCA Lawyers is a Spanish legal firm, so we do deal purely with Spanish law, but we've been established over 25 years. So we practice in the Spanish offices. Our main office is in Alicante. We have an office in Madrid as well, but we also have offices in London and in Miami. So we cover not only British, we also cover the American market as well. It's also a multidisciplinary firm. So although we specialize very much in purchasing and residencies, and we do cover all types of residencies, we also do have full civil and criminal departments, which means whatever the matter that somebody's got, we have the lawyers here in-house to deal with that.
Okay, excellent. So we've not got anyone responding yet to my question about where you're looking to buy. So I don't know if people are just being shy or if they haven't found the button, but do please put your questions and comments into that box. And I think let's start off with the buying process, because that's always the thing that people worry about first. So tell us all about the buying process, Emma.
Okay. Well, first of all, when you're buying in Spain, we would always recommend, whichever firm you decide to choose, that you use an independent lawyer. The reason for this is that an independent lawyer is only going to be interested in your rights and doesn't have any affiliations elsewhere. It's important to understand that the differences between buying in Spain, in the UK, in the US, in other European countries, it varies quite a lot. And so making sure that you understand and have the know-how to deal with the Spanish system specifically is really, really important. Now, from the point of view of the actual buying process itself, I would normally describe it as a three-stage process, in that you would be first of all looking at the reservation of the property, where you'd be asked to make a small deposit. You will be fixing the price that you're paying for the property, and maybe some initial conditions such as when you're going to be completing, if there's furniture involved. But it also means that the property can't be sold to anybody else. It starts the process and starts firming the process, and is the onus then on the next stage to do the deposit or private purchase contract. Now, this is really important in Spain and specific to the process, where the clauses within this contract are binding to notary, and you also would normally pay 10% of the purchase price minus what you've already paid. So it's a strong contract, it's an important contract, and you need to make sure that all of the relevant checks have been made, documentation provided, or where it's not, that we can write it into that contract. So if there's any problems later on, we're able to terminate it and get your money back. So it's that peace of mind that you're doing everything correctly from the very beginning and protecting yourself to ensure it's the smooth transaction that it always should be over here. The final stage of the purchase is then signing a public notary. Again, this is specific to Spain. All purchases have to go through public notary, and then following payment of the relevant taxes, it's then inscribed in the property registry where you get the final deed. Now, there's lots of reasons as to why people might be buying in Spain. It could be for a holiday home, it could be for an investment, it could be because they're planning to live here. All of those things is really good to look into when you're starting the process, because there is other information and advice that might be pertinent to that specific reason. For example, if you're talking about residency, we can cover those different options so you're pre-prepared. But if you're talking more about investment, then if it's going to be a short-term investment, you need to be thinking about a tourist license for the property. So whatever the process is going to be, we're able to help you on all of the things that are around that. And obviously, we also look at the tax implications to try and make sure that we minimise what you need to pay and understand exactly what those costs are going to be. A point that Chris actually made, where he's asking about where people were thinking of buying in Spain, is really important, because each of the autonomous regions in Spain have different applications of tax. So when you're looking at a property, if we know where you're looking to buy, what you're looking to buy, then we can give you a really good idea of specifically what those costs and processes are going to be involved. The process itself should be the same, but the taxes do vary. And then the only other thing, obviously, that's important with purchasing is that in order to sign a property in Spain, you do need an NIE number. This is effectively a tax identifier. There's no worries to have this. It's not going to give you a tax implication in the country of your origin. It is purely a reference number that is used whenever there's a tax implication in Spain. So obviously, with a property purchase, there's a tax implication because you have to pay the property tax on purchasing the stamp duty effectively that would be applied.
So just to say, I guess then it's important if there's different legal processes for different sort of kinds of property, holiday home that you might be renting out. I guess it's important to contact you quite early on in the process.
We would always encourage you to speak to us beforehand, because it not only does it give you more information, it allows you to do more planning in terms of timescales. Because I mean, if less so for investment, because you've got a second stage of the tourist license, but it might help you to focus which sort of areas are going to be more appropriate depending on what type of investment that you're looking at. If you're thinking of residency, then different types of residency take a different amount of time. So you want to build all of those things into your time scale before coming over here. So it just takes some of that extra stress out of it for you from the very beginning, but also making sure that you feel comfortable and clear about everything that's happening.
And also, I guess I'm sort of imagining that a lot of people will arrive in Spain and they'll find a property and they'll say, well, I better find a lawyer now. And I can imagine an estate agent saying, don't worry, there's a notary system. They'll make sure everything's watertight. That's not a good idea, is it?
Now, we would always recommend that you use an independent lawyer irrespective. I mean, sometimes you can go through a property purchase that way and not have a problem, and sometimes you will. If you do have that problem, it's a lot of money to be losing, or a lot of potential problems you could have later on. There are so many things that a lawyer is able to do outside of the normal process, even for something as simple as you're looking at a property and thinking, I want to make these changes to it. Well, if you let us know that at the beginning, we can make sure that is something that you are actually going to be able to do, because there are restrictions on certain properties as to how big you can build or what type of things you can do, depending on the community, depending on the area, depending on the designation of the land. But all of these things we can check out beforehand before you put down too much money and to go too far down the process.
Okay, and can you just explain the reservation deposit part? Because I understand that when we find that property that we like, the agent will want us to put down a deposit.
Yeah.
Maybe I say only five or 10,000 euros. That's quite a lot, of course. So how can we know if we're going to get that back if we can't get a mortgage, if we can't get planning permission, and so on?
Well, this is the thing with the reservation, and that reservation fee can vary quite a lot. It can be anywhere from typically from 3,000 to 6,000 euros. On a higher priced property, it might even be more, as you've mentioned, up to 10,000. That money is normally deposited with the estate agency, and it is a case of having a legal document and having that transfer directly with them. In terms of getting that money back, it depends very much on the situation as to whether the agent is willing to sign an agreement that says that they will return that deposit to you if you decide not to go forward, or a partial refund. It's probably quite important at this stage to think of it from the two sides, that the person that has the property is going to be taking that property off the market and can't sell. So what they're going to want to avoid is having that property off the market for 3 or 4 months while somebody's umming and ahhing and looking for those to see if they can buy it, and not being able to sell to somebody else in the meantime, and losing all of that time for a sale. So there's a sort of a balance in trying to work out where you are with that, and trying to look after both parties. But as I say, quite often you can speak with the estate agent and say, well, in 2 weeks, can we have an agreement that I can have that money back or a refund? It's a case by case basis, or you can talk with us directly if you want us to be involved at that very early stage, so that we can talk to the seller or to the agent on your behalf.
Okay, sure. Let me just ask a question that we've had coming in. This is from John, who's looking to buy either in Murcia or Malaga. He wants to know, do I need to open a bank account in Spain?
We would always recommend that you do open a bank account during the purchase process, and that is something that we can do for people with sufficient power of attorney as part of the buying process. The reason that we would normally say this is because quite typically in Spain, a lot of notaries still go by a bank order for the final payment of the property, which is drawn from a Spanish account, or sort of an instantaneous transfer from the account. The issue that you can have if you're transferring from outside of Spain is that on the day of the notary, the money has to arrive and be received by the seller during the course of that appointment for the notary to be able to notarize the document. So if there's any problem with that, then you would risk not being able to sign on that day.
Excellent. Okay, brilliant. That's all the buying questions we've got at the moment. So let's go on to residency and 90 days rule and so on.
Okay. Well, there are basically two options that people have got. You are either, if you're outside of the EU, so we're talking about the States, we're talking about the UK, we're talking about Australia, all of the non-EU countries are bound by the 90 and 180 days if they're part of the Schengen agreement. You either have that or you're a resident. There is no in-betweens. Now, with regards to the 90 and 180 days, I basically have this simple diagram, which is you have a 180 days period during which you can enjoy 90 days in the Schengen area, the whole of the Schengen, not just Spain. The day that you arrive and start the 180-day period, you can have 90 days wherever you want within that period, or less, but not more. Once you reach the 180 days, then you have to leave, and then you would have to return to start your next 180-day period. And again, it's the same thing. So for British people, this is a big difference to them because previously, obviously, before Brexit, they had the European rights. At the end of the day, it's not a huge change because a European is allowed to be here up to 183 days before becoming resident. Here we're talking about still having 180 days, 3 days difference. The problem with this is you can't lump it all together in one trip. So you have to be a little bit clever about when you start your 180 days, maybe with a trip outside to make the longer holiday if that's what you're looking to do. But obviously the next stage after that is going to be residency in Spain. Now, I've got a few of the most common ones listed here, but there are a lot of different types of residency. So it's really important when we talk to people, what is it that you're planning to do in Spain? Because from that we work out which is the right type of residency for you. The most common one is the non-lucrative visa, the non-working visa, the retirement visa, or the NLV. It's called, referred to by all of those. The whole point of this is that you live in Spain, but you do not work in Spain or anywhere else. It is all of your income needs to be a passive income, whether this be pensions, investments, savings, but not physically working. The digital nomad is one that was more recently introduced. And the idea of that is to allow people to live in Spain, but be remotely working for another country. So if you are in a particular job in the UK, in the US, which allows you to remotely work, then effectively you would be able to base yourself in Spain whilst doing it. Then we have different types of work visas. Again, this depends if you have a specific work offer in Spain or if you are planning to set up a company in Spain. And then the other very common one, I do want to mention it, the golden visa, because it is something which has been of great interest over the years to people, because it allows you to be resident in Spain, have the freedom of the Schengen, but it only requires a minimum of 1 day in Spain. You can do more than 183 days and be fully resident, but if you do less than 183 days, then you wouldn't have to be fiscally resident in Spain, and most of the other types will require that. There is an exception with the digital nomad, but the majority of them is that you will be paying income tax in Spain. So the golden visa is a way of getting that freedom of the Schengen, having residency in Spain, but not actually having to pay taxes in Spain. However, this has been announced that it's going to stop. It is a long way into this process already. So it's just a case of when the final date for that to end is going to be issued, and we don't know when that is. So at the moment, we're still processing these types of visas. But if that is something that people are interested in, it really does need to be addressed as an urgent inquiry, because in the future, it's just not going to be there as an option. There are other
Okay.
types of visa, as I say, I can rattle on about this, but there are other types, but there's so many different types. It's better for people to sort of speak to us directly. The other
Okay.
major one I haven't listed on here is EU citizens. You do still, with an EU passport, still have to do a residency process here. It's much simpler, and it allows you to work in Spain if you want to do so, but there is still a process that you have to go through.
Okay. So let's just go back and unpack some of these. So John has asked about the minimum income requirement for a non-lucrative visa.
Okay, for an individual applicant, it's 28,800 per year at the moment. For a couple, which is obviously quite the common one, between the two of them, and this has to be a married couple or civil registered partnership. Common law partnership isn't recognised, so it does need to be those, unless certain extenuating circumstances where we try to put it forward. But then it would be 36,000 euros between the two of you that you need to show.
Okay, I mean that's quite a lot of money
It
to
is.
have as a pure income. Suppose I've got some assets which I'm not sort of liquidated kind of thing. So so I've got property, say, but my income is only 20,000. Can I use the property as kind of collateral?
Unfortunately, no. It's quite strict for the initial visa for the application, and it needs to be money that is accessible. As I say, this can be income, this
Okay.
can be savings, but pension funds that are locked away, property assets, they aren't able to be counted in that initial amount.
Okay. So suppose I can take. I'm talking about British people here. Suppose I can take my lump my lump sum, my tax-free lump sum at 55, and suppose I take that, and then I got quite a large wad in the bank, but I don't necessarily want it to come as income. I could use it if it's cash in the bank.
Yes, it would just be classed as savings, and it's very easy to support during your application because you'll have a statement with that amount in there.
Okay. Tim has asked, do I need to be fully retired to get a non-lucrative visa? So I'm guessing, a lot of us, might do a bit of consultancy work, say, or, well, yeah.
It
A
isn't
bit of
allowed on the
everything.
visa.
Right.
It
Okay.
isn't. Now, what a lot of people do, which I would like to sort of mention, is use these as like a stepping stone. where they would come across as a non-lucrative resident to start off with, and after living here a minimum of a year, so a year, 2 years onwards, if they are living in Spain and want to then set up a business or take on work, it's possible from Spain then to renew to a different type of visa in order to be able to do what you then want to be able to do. But it doesn't allow you to work part-time.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. John has asked, do the savings need to be in a Spanish bank account?
No, no. As
Okay.
long as you show that the savings are there in a bank, it can be in other countries. That's not a problem at all.
Okay. We've got more questions. If you're married, can you apply as single? I'm not sure about what the questioner means exactly.
Well, yes, you can, but you would have to each show 28,800, for example.
Oh, okay. Right, sure. Okay. So the Irish passport, suppose one of you has got an Irish passport and one hasn't. What happens there?
Okay. First of all, for traveling on the tourist visa, it means one of you can have a longer holiday than the other. You do not get rights as a tourist from your partner having an EU passport. I know a lot of places say that it's different, but the reality of actually coming into Spain, coming across the borders, you are coming over on your passport only. But it is a wonderful advantage when you're actually looking for residency in Spain, because firstly, we would do 2 stages. The person with the passport, the EU passport, does the registration as an EU citizen, and then we can group that spouse to them for residency based on their passport. The great advantage is there's less requirement needed for funds. It's more the basic amount of 600 a month each. So about 8,000 a year, 9,000 a year. And it also does allow you to work in Spain should you wish to do so.
Okay. Thinking about the golden visa and the limited time, would you say, from your experience of Spanish bureaucracy and how things work there, that it will be a case of, right, we're going to stop the golden visa and you've got until, I don't know, December 2025, or when it finishes, will it be a hard finish quite soon?
Hard finish. It's
Okay.
the last stage is giving us the date where they will not accept them. So it'll literally be a case the application goes in, it doesn't exist anymore. We
But if
also
you've
can't
already,
renew it.
right.
Okay. So for those that have got a golden visa during this time, because as I say, we are still processing them, and they're processed, you get 3 years residency. The renewal won't exist if this is ended as well. So what we will do with those is again look for a different visa that we can move them across to from that point.
Okay. Right, let's go through some of the viewer questions. As a semi-retired director with a UK limited consultancy company, am I best applying for a digital nomad visa so I can keep the income coming in?
If he is still working and then yes, it would be digital nomad. Where you've got somebody that's a company director and they're receiving dividends, that would be passive and they could do non-lucrative.
Sure. Okay. Sarah has said, as a married couple, if one has an Irish passport and one has a British passport, and you apply for Spanish residency, are you both able to work or just the Irish passport holder?
Both.
Okay, fantastic. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is an advantage, and there's apparently a huge number of additional Irish passport holders since Brexit.
Yeah, I must confess that I've got mine. I've got this package of stuff. I've got all the marriage certificate, grandma's marriage certificate, and I've got all this stuff, and it's just ready to go off when I've filled in the forms. It's a bit of a process, but it's certainly far from impossible. And of course, if your parent was Irish, then you can just apply for the passport. There's no complicated process. You are regarded as Irish, even if you weren't born there.
Well, I was just going to say as well, if anybody does have Spanish descendancy up to grandfather level, then there is a specific way to apply for Spanish nationality depending on their situation. It's the Ley de Nietos, the grandchildren's law. Again, it's a temporary law, but if you do have that kind of heritage, then there is an opportunity to possibly gain Spanish nationality and the passport.
Brilliant. Okay. So let's go through some of the requirements of the non-lucrative visa, because I think that's the one that most people are going to go for. What so you need the income, and you need health insurance, and you need good character. Is there anything else? And how does one go about getting those sorts of details?
I would say the non-lucrative visa is always firstly applied for in the Spanish consulate in the country of origin, which is important because timescales about how long those consulates take to process needs to be built in. And you have to provide all of the documentation on the day of your appointment. We work a lot with people on these visas to make sure that before their appointment date, they've got all of the paperwork prepared and correct, ready for it. There's some general applications that they're across the board, but then some of the consulates will have additional requirements depending on the consulate. It's the ability that they do have. The basic requirements that are required are going to be the medical cover. You will need a certificate, the medical certificate, to state that you don't have any of the infectious diseases under the 2005 regulations, which you can do through your GP, through a private health provider, and there's online services that do those as well. You will need a criminal history. This has got to cover the last 5 years. So if you've lived in a different country or resided in a different country during the period of the 5 years, you'd need to get it from both countries. Then if you are going to be having a spouse or civil registered partner, then that certificate is also going to be required. If there are children to be added, birth certificates would be required. The important thing on this is some of these documents are specifically time limited, need to be within 3 months, for example, which means applying for them and having them within 3 months on the date of your appointment at the consulate. It's not for later on, it's just for that date. And they'll need to be legalized in the country of origin and a sworn translation. All of these things that we're happy to help everybody through step by step so that you can make sure you've got exactly what you need in the right format, ready for your appointment, no matter which consulate that is going to be in.
Okay. I mean, fantastic. It doesn't sound like it's particularly difficult. So as long as you've got the income and you've got all those, you've got the health insurance and the clean criminal record. How long does the process take? And can you give us an idea of what the cost is of the visa application?
That is the costs. It depends on the consulate because they've got different consular fees. So wherever you are, then we can give you a breakdown of what the consular fees will be, and they're available on the consulate websites as well. They vary quite dramatically between them.
Oh, really? I mean, is the main fee, is it for you, or is it the processing fee at the
No, it's nothing to
consulate?
do with us at all. It's the consulate
Oh,
itself has those
okay.
fees. We have fixed fees that we offer, and we can provide those to people as you go along. But
Sure.
each of those consulates have their specific sets of fees, and then the process going through. The time scale, again, it depends on the consulate. The maximum time is supposed to be a maximum of 3 months. That's what the guidelines are. Depending on the consulate, quite typically in the UK consulates, it's about a month, 6-8 weeks. Some of the American consulates that we've worked with, usually about 2 months, but it is supposed to be somewhere between a month and 3 months, and it depends on the workload at the time. So if you think, for example, that people are applying in the height of summer when there's a lot of people off on holidays, then processing will be slower, and around Christmas time, for example, as well, because of holidays. So it's within a certain time frame that they're supposed to get them done, so we don't tend to have big issues with it, but do bear in mind when you're making your application, because that can have an effect on it.
Okay. And I guess the other question is about how long the property buying process is taking at the moment. It's our last question we just got. I just was interested in, if I want to be in by the spring, I guess I should start looking now.
Um, from the point of view, when you found a property and have started the process, it can be completed anywhere between from 6 weeks to 6, 8, 10 weeks. There can be things that will delay that. For example, if there's mortgages involved, or if you've got specific agreements between the buyer and seller to have a later date. But it is, quite possible to complete within about 8, 10 weeks.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's not bad, because I mean, in some countries you're talking sort of six months. So I guess it's good to hear that Spanish are so efficient. Okay, that's all we got time for. Thank you ever so much for your fantastic advice, as ever, Emma, and thank you for JLCA and associate lawyers for coming to our webinar. There's your contact details there. That's a clickable link, but you won't be able to click that. So I guess people can find you via the Your Overseas Home website, and they can send you their questions and hopefully get in touch both for their property purchase and their visa if they need one. So thank you once again, Emma. Thank you to our audience. And if you found this webinar helpful, do perhaps give us a recommendation on Trustpilot. You should find a link coming up now, roughly, which you click. It's not going to work, is it? Well, never mind. Just find us on Trustpilot. That would be very nice. And thank you once again, Emma, and thank you to our audience. Happy property hunting in Spain. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.